Hi, my name is Carolina Bernal. Today I'm going to present the infant formula controversy of the case of Nestlé. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the history. What is Nestlé? Nestlé is the world's largest food and beverage company. They have more than 2,000 brands ranging from global icons to local favorites, and they are presented in 191 countries around the world. Also, Nestlé's purpose is enhancing quality of life and contributing to the healthier future. They want to help shape a better and healthier world. They also want to inspire people to live healthier lives. Also, they want to contribute to society while ensuring the long-term success of their company. I'm going to give a summary of the case studied. There are five components, important components of the case. So, the first one is Nestle was internationally boycotted for the involvement of the death of third world infants for the distribution of infant feeding formula. For over 20 years, the world's largest food processing companies, Nestle, was boycotted for the involvement of this case. This boycott started in 1974 when a British journalist published a report that accused Nestlé of manufacturing a power formula that contributed to the death of third world infants but motivating the consumption of it without caring about the consequences. The report, entitled Nestlé Kills Babies, accusing the company of being unethical and having an immoral behavior, but encouraging the use of this formula instead of breastfeeding. So we can see that Nestle was in a big and a huge problem. But in defense, Nestle says that the deaths were not caused for the infant formula, but rather by the bad use of the formula. The charges against Nestlé were mainly focused on the way the company used advertising and marketing as a way of propagating the use of their products instead of breastfeeding among the third world mothers who really misuse the product. In defense, Nestlé argued that they were never underestimate the use of their infant formula, and always they believed that the breastfeeding is the best food for infants and encourages the breastfeeding around the world as it has done for decades. They said that it's really important that the formula is only used for being a supplement. Also, we can see in the fourth square that Nestlé Case was led by the WHO, World Health Organization, who recommend the adoption of an international code to regulate the advertising and marketing of a formula in the third world in order to promulgate the exclusive use of the formula. To not promulgate the exclusive use of the formula instead of breastfeeding. So we can see that Nestle argue with this code, and they said that they are going to today have a good advertising of their products to not have these huge problems in the future. Also, another problem occurred in 2001. It was believed that some million children around the world had contracted HIV at their mother's breast. These are some pictures of the case. We can see that people were really angry with Nestle. They said that Nestle kills babies, the baby is a killer, nasty. So for Nestle it was really difficult to to make customers love it again. This is some information about the topic. We can see that babies were not receiving essential antibodies contained in breast milk and were unprotected against illness. So that is why most mothers use this formula to not giving them their breast. Also, mothers were unaware of the need to sterilize water or did not have access to the necessary means. Therefore, infant formula was being prepared with contaminated water, which may have resulted in diarrhea or other diseases. And finally, inadequate education and income, along with cultural differences, often led to the dilution of formula, which greatly reduced its nutritional value. So, in conclusion, we can say that there were mothers who can't give breastfeeding to their children, so they recurred to this formula as a solution of this problem, but they don't realize that this is just a supplement. Also, they didn't take into account that the water that they used to prepare it was contaminated. So this is like the main cause of the dead children. For instance, the company marketing practices were unclear and led to the misconception that formula was a good way to replace breast milk and other form of nutrition vital to a child's development. So these are three questions of the case that I am going to answer. The first one is, what could Nestlé have done to have avoided the accusation of killing third-world babies and still market its products? So Nestlé must be proactive to attend and handle the problems that occurs since they didn't advertise the product in the correct form. They had to be more careful of how they promote their products, principally when they are products that makes part of children's growth development. The company did not advertise the product according to the culture of the nations. They have to realize that every country is really different in terms of culture, traditions, customs, so they have to be really focused on the way they make clear the purpose of the company. So they had to say that the formula's purpose is being a supplement of breastfeeding. But they don't take into account that many people don't understand their purpose and they use it as the principal way to feed their children. The Nestlé avoid the economic and social barriers, so this was like the mainly problem in this case. The third question is, after Nestlé experience, how do you suggest it or any other company can protect itself in the future? So, first of all, Nestlé and other companies must know that what issues have to take into account when they want to introduce some products into a market. They have to realize that each country is really different to the host one, due to their traditions, lifestyle, economic status, natural conditions, politics, and mostly companies must understand that every country has a culture completely different. They should make a marketing study before introducing any product in the market by analyzing possible risks, medical effects, and unexpected consequences that can bring too much problems to the company if they don't take into account. Also, they need to care more about customer rights and healthy instead of thinking about their own benefit. Nestlé should research more about the possible consequences of the advertising and marketing of our formula, rather than put it in the market without regard of the way customers interpret their messages. Furthermore, companies should provide the right education of how to use and how to prepare their products and services. They must emphasize in the way they spread their mainly intention. The powder formula is a supplement of breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is really important for children healthy. This is like the main intention of this product. The next question is question number 5. What advice would you give to Nestlé now in light of the new problem of HIV infection being spread via mother's milk? So, I recommend them to continue spreading their worldwide message by saying that it's really important for children's healthy nutrition and growing to be fed by their mother's breast. But for any reasons, the mother needs to use the baby's powder formula. They should use it as a supplement, a complement of a children's alimentation. Furthermore, implement programs that provide the right education for women, especially for the third world, that explain how to use the products in the correct way. Also, Nestlé should lead a deep research on how they could reduce the risk of mother's HIV transmission to avoid children's mortality. In addition, they should find a way they could give instructions for the mothers who are infected, finding new alternatives for feeding their children. Finally, they should be completely free to face any inconvenience that may arise in the future by creating forecasts of possible risk. Three concepts from the theory studied in the class. So the first concept is related with Nestlé Case is self-reference criterion. Because the concept means when a company unconsciously refers to their own cultural values, experiences, and knowledge as a basis for decisions. This was said in the book, Categorically and Glam. That means that company knows how really a product will work in their own country because they know all about it. They know how people act, think, react, need, and want. So when they introduce it to other country, it's much easier than introducing in another one that is completely different to the culture in terms of culture traditions. First of all, they need to make a deep marketing study to know how foreign people will react with the good or service they are selling. As I said before, there are companies that for them it's really easy to introduce products in new companies, in new countries, because that countries are really similar in terms of cultures, but there are countries that are really different. So what they have to do, they have to do an analysis of the market place. They have to research about the culture. They have to know what the people really need. Also, people must know that they can take a decision in a foreign country by thinking that how they handle the situation in their own country is going to be the same in others. That means that people must know all about the foreign culture for not commit any mistake in the negotiation. In the case of Nestlé, the company should take into account that the powder formula was not going to work worldwide. Without a deep investigation and research of each region, but analyzing their culture, tradition, way of thinking, their past, economic, political aspects. Nestle had to stop thinking that if in their own country the things are going to work well, in the other countries will happen the same. They have to evaluate all the possibilities and risks they could assume if they introduce any product or service in other countries. The key of success in international marketing is adaptation to environment differences from one market to another. This was said in the book. Other concept is language. Language, I consider that is a big barrier to make or promote products in other countries because actually worldwide exists more than 7,000 languages spoken. That means that when companies want to enter to a foreign country in order to introduce their business or a specific product or service, they must have an expert who makes the communication easier for both parts. That is to say that the expert must require a thoughtful understanding of the language as well as the ability to speak in order to establish a good deal. This was said in the book. Also, exist some barriers in terms of culture and expression because there are many countries that speak English or Spanish, but each country have their unique way to express themselves, their unique way to say the things. So there are words that have a completely different significance despite being the same language. In the case of Nestlé, if the company didn't want to promote the formula, they had to be really careful of how they communicate themselves in the best way, in the correct language, for avoiding misunderstandings and such and people's death. They have to know that every part of the world is completely different in terms of culture. So they have to adapt their marketing strategies in order to be accepted and understood by everybody. If they were clear with the product purpose, they would have avoided the whole problem. So in conclusion, language is really important, and if a company wants to introduce their products to other country, they had to make a research, they had to know all the culture, tradition, all the things that are required to make a clearly negotiation with that country, and especially they had to establish a good communication with that country to don't have any problems of communicating the purpose and the message of the product, in this case of the formula. The last concept is political economy. This makes part of the five elements of culture. Depending on the socio-political and economical model each country behave and think model, each country behave and think completely different to others. Therefore, political and economical factors really influence ourselves in how our cultural values are developed. Indeed, when the model changes, humans have to adapt to it. According to history, geography, and culture, and countries completely governed by people who take international decisions seeking the wellness of everybody. Actually, there are differences between some countries. Some are developing and others are in process. In the case, they mention the third world, the ones who make part of the countries who are in process of being developed. In comparison of the first world, they have social and political problems that affect them completely. They don't have enough resources and they don't have enough profit. Most of them suffer of corruption in a big way. So in the case of Nestlé, we can see that they had to take into account the socio-cultural context of the third world people in terms of profitability, economical conditions, and political and social aspects. They had to know that every country is completely different. Every place in the world changes according to its traditions, geography, culture, history, media, technology, and social institutions. Thus, Nestlé has to advertise their products evaluating all of these aspects in order to establish a good communication according to their needs and desires. They had to transmit the message in a correct way. So we can see that the problem was uh, focused on the third world mothers uh, who cried the children. So we can see that they didn't have like the enough communication to understand how the formula was used. So these companies that are really huge have to be really careful about promoting their products in these places because many people doesn't have media, doesn't have money to understand or knowledge, the enough knowledge to understand the usage of these things. They Nestle had to be really careful and really clear of saying their message and saying how the formula is used. So this is the conclusion of the case. We can see that Nestle is a really huge company that sells many products, but this problem occurred because they advertise in a bad way. They didn't set the really purpose and message and usage principally of the formula. The third world people understood in a bad way that this formula was used as the unique way of breastfeeding, but no, this is just a supplement. So if Nestle was more clear in checking the usage and the formula's qualities, this will not happen. So thank you for your attention. This is the presentation of this case. These are the references, and that's it.